All right. Hello, 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 hello.
Let me hear it, yo. Where my people's at? I like that. Bang on your chest if you the best. We be number one, ain't nothing else. Diamonds on my head, let the crown tell it. Make way, man, let me do my do. K-I-N-G. We the crown jewels, we don't deal with no fools, yo. K-I-N-G. Next on deck, dedicated to the queens, go Q-U-E-E-N. And just in case you ain't heard me, I'ma say it again, it go Q-U-E-E-N. We give a toast to the most because the rain never ends. Yeah, a little louder. I like that, go. Yo, louder. Let's go.
2 ARL events in the book. Good evening. Welcome to the ARL recap show. Extra Innings. My name is Luke Balancio. I am your host. I'm also one of the ARL program directors and mentor on Team 498. Good evening, and I guess let's get started. This past weekend we had another fun event at Cactus High School, and the rankings have shaken up. So during tonight's show, we're going to take a look at how the event unfolded. We'll look at the rankings, like for the actual event, and see if maybe somebody co-opted this time. Might be a good idea. See if someone did it. And we'll look at how playoffs panned out. I'm going to take a little bit of a deeper look tonight at like some of the matches specifically to talk about strategy. Because one thing that was really interesting about this particular ARL is that we got a couple alliances built that might be might be something that ends up being built for ARL champs. Maybe in that lower end range, like maybe like Alliance 6 through 8. So we had a couple alliances that I think were well put together on paper, but then what they executed in the match, maybe not to their potential. So we're going to look at some of those matches, and then we might also look at a final or two. Just so everyone knows, and it's in our chat, you can find ARL and connect with us on all of those social medias. We are most active on our Instagram. But the Instagram posts to Facebook, so if you're on Facebook and you want to follow us there, please do so. And then the big one is our Discord. Please join our Discord, especially if you're in the Arizona FRC community. I couldn't recommend being in the Discord more. It's a little slow right now, but as most summer is, but it'll pick up significantly during the build season and probably closer to ARL Champs. So you can find us there. And then if you haven't seen, all of our matches are uploaded to YouTube. We're in the process of getting them connected to the Blue Alliance. So if you've gone to the Blue Alliance to look for matches and you don't see them, they actually do exist. You can see them first every time on our ARL YouTube channel. All the matches are uploaded already. You can check them out there. So without further ado, as is a custom on this show, I'm going to don my recap cowboy hat here in a second, and I'm going to read a brief synopsis of ARL June. Now, I haven't read this synopsis yet. It was written for me, and so we're going to cold read it, and I'm going to do my best to, get into character here. So, without further ado, howdy! Sheriff Luke back. Another ARL in the books. We're going to read this for you. Sit down and let me tell y'all about the ARL June Qualifier. Though only 12 robots strolled through that there saloon known as Cactus High School, them robots were still spitting coral at high speeds. After 18, I hate saying rootin' tootin', just for the record, 18 rootin' tootin' qualification matches, the Cowpokes from Mesa 2403 came out on top as ranked number 1. When it came time for picking, Plasma was cooler than wearing a watering hole on a hot summer day. They picked the hometown Cowpoke 498 and 991B to complete their alliance. 10506 wasn't ready to lie down without a fight. They picked up a top Coral Wrangler in 2375 and finished off with the newcomers in town 9982. Alliance 3 was surprising foe, exclamation point. L1 scoring 498B scooped up fellow L1 scoring 2375B and picked up the top processing robot in 991 to finish off their posse. And finally, Alliance 4 was formed by the ghost back from the grave 996. They wrangled together Algae and Coral scoring partners 7703 and 9091 to create a nightmare for defenses. In the big show, Alliance 1 showed their dominance early, scoring over 140 points in their first 2 matches. They done secured themselves a spot in the finals by defeating the 4th and 2nd alliances. The lower bracket saw those slithering L1 specialists fight their way to the lower bracket finals where they were outdrawn. Alliance 2 took that victory and claimed the last spot in the final showdown. Them finals started off with a bang. Alliance 1 was firing on all cylinders, putting up an impressive ARL high score of 168. Although Alliance 2 suffered some mechanical gremlins in Finals 1, they got back up and ready to fight once more in Finals 2. Alliance 2 put up a good tussle, but it was Alliance 1 that won the showdown. Fiu. I can't wait to get back out there again. We did it. Thank you for attending the Robot Roundup for ARL June. Good day. I don't know. I did my best. Not really vibing on that one. I don't know what FEEW means. PHEE-EEW. FEEW. FEEW? Few? Few? Like foo? Whatever. Doesn't matter. That summed about up. I think we should take a closer look, but Plasma showed up to play once again, posting an impressive 4.0 rank point average, and climbing more regularly. Big surprises, not really surprises, but like continuing to surprise at how good they're getting. 2375 and 10506 team up on the second seed. 498A makes their ARL debut, picks up the victory of Plasma. Not really probably because they were good at scoring Coral, but they scoring Algae is probably something that Plasma was looking for. And then our 2 lower seeded alliances, and those are the ones I want to dive into later. Captained by 498B and 996. A lot of focus on L1 cycling, with the 4th seed picking up the only remaining non-L1 scoring Coral robot in 7703, while 498B elected to go with 2375B, another L1 cycler. And so that matchup, when they play each other in lower bracket, is actually really cool. because it's like it's putting proof on paper of like do you just slam as many L1s as you can, and then can that outdo, because you're slowing them faster, can that outdo like a couple L2s or L3s scored? So it was a really great event. Happy that all the teams showed up that registered. Am looking forward to getting some more teams for ARL July. So here's what I'll say, and I'm going to post this again in the Discord. We are getting dangerously close to August. And why I say dangerous is because we are going to explode in August. As in, come ARL August, the qualifier is going to be max. We are going to be at 35 teams August and September, right? So these early championship ranking points that teams are picking up by going to May, June, and July are going to be clutch, because it's much easier to rank in those top spots and be part of those alliances going deep in playoffs when there's a quarter or a third of the teams there, right? So if you have the ability and you haven't really thought about it yet, I highly, highly, highly recommend registering for ARL July. There's still plenty of time. Even if you've already registered, just re-register again. Even if you're thinking about bringing another robot in ARL August, but it's moving right now, it's just a drivetrain, bring in an ARL July. You never know if it's like the third robot or the fourth robot of the winning alliance, it's going to get a major point boost before it even competes at its full capacity, like full ability in August. So it's my final plea. I'll post one more via text in the Discord, but I highly recommend, if you can make it work, showing up for ARL July in just a couple weeks. We don't have as long a gap this time around, so ARL July is just in just a few weeks. So if you're a team that just competed, maybe don't undertake a bunch of really complicated changes. Maybe just work on, tuning and getting things ready to go for July rather than adding a ton of new stuff, because you don't have as many. You're down like 2 weeks than normal to prepare for ARL. All right, so those rankings. Let's take a look. So this was our qualification rankings. These are our qualification rankings after 9 qualification rounds. I believe, Plasma going an impressive 8-1, especially impressive considering a few of those matches. I think 3 of them, their arms stopped. They stopped having the ability to score coral, so they were able to put up a really impressive record, even though, right, they're normally averaging above 10 coral a match, and so for those 3 matches, they were well under. Via my numbers, right? Scrolly. So for these 4 matches, even well under 5. So really impressive that they still come out 9-1 with a ranking score of 4.0, just squeaking in to our 4.0 bracket for rankings. And then really impressive showings, like I mentioned at the start of the show, from 10.506 and 23.75, ranking 3.0 and higher for both. I don't, just fighting through quals, 10.506 going 7-2, 23.75 going 6-3. And then really just 1 ranking point difference. So a matter of an auto ranking point or a barge ranking point. You'll notice that the co-op was used. The co-op was done. The only team to not come away with co-op points is 23.75B. And although the co-op was not part of the tiebreaker for this event, the co-op was much more used. I wouldn't say heavily used, but it was definitely used. We even had a couple matches where, teams were strategizing whether they were going to go onto the other side of the field to score the algae for the other team to get the co-op. Really tight here in these 3. 2, 3, and 4 separated by 2 RP. 10.506, 23.75, and 4.98, and then a bit of a gap between 4.98 and 4.98B. Like I said, all of the top 4 had the ability to score coral on L4, and pretty much all the levels. And then basically when you hit this plateau of 4.98, the only 991 can score coral on L3 and 2s if the algae are removed. And then 7703 can score coral again on L2 and L3, and they can remove the algae themselves. So, in the top 4, coral dominant, and then in the bottom 7, only 2 of the remaining robots have the ability to score coral above L1. So it led to some interesting alliance builds. Average match score, everything about what you would expect, right? 2403 at the top, and then 498. Even though they rank 4, and they picked up by 2403 the first pick. Auto down for 498, up for 2375. They lead the event in auto average, which is great. I know they've been tuning the heck out of their 2 coral, and I think if they can get that hitting consistently, it's going to help a ton. And then you see average barge, Plasma leading the way because their climber is working, and it's working more consistent. They hit it in over half their matches, which is super impressive. So I think what you'll see here trending, you'll see the maybe a little bit more focus. Slowly but surely, average auto will go up for some of our top teams, right? This average co-op, I believe you will see also to be about the same. I don't think it's going to go up very much in July, but I think it's going to be about the same. Definitely teams are going to do it. We got some weird outlier in ARL May where nobody did it. But yeah, focus on a lot of the meta in quals was focusing on winning the match. Not too many matches where teams were going for the Reef RP. Most ended up with like as many L4s as possible, and that translated a bit into playoffs as well. So then in playoffs, right? Our alliances, we shook up. 2403 takes 498. For obvious reasons, once you watch them play together, 498 was the best algae handler at the event. 2403 the best coral handler at the event. And with 2403's ability to pick up off the ground, they kind of synergize really well early. With 2403 not having to knock their algae out of their way. And then they pick up 991B, which was a clutch pickup, because 991B basically got their ground algae mech working near the end of the day, at the end of quals. So they were able to super utilize 991B's ground algae early on to score some algae in the processor and clear the field of them. Alliance 2, 10506 electing 2375. This makes tons of sense. Right, 10506, very consistent at this event, averaging 4 high coral a game, which is L4, which is really impressive. And then 2375 actually with the second highest coral average in quals behind 2403. So this team up made a lot of sense. Neither scores in the net with algae. 2375 can score in the processor. And they pick up 9982, which was quite interesting because 991B had just gotten their ground algae working, like quite literally like in their last qual. So I don't know, that might have been a miss here. 9982 was playing some pretty hardcore defense through a lot of quals, just a swerve bot, and so that was very alluring. I know when they were picked up, as drive coach of 498, I was kind of a gulp moment. I was like, oh no, like here comes the big defender. So this was an interesting choice between 9982 and 9991B here, but it makes a lot of sense at the end of the day. 498B picks up 2275B, probably the second best L1 cycler at the event. And then they round out with 991, who ground algae in the processor capable, and then had some experience playing defense throughout the day. And then really happy for 996, L1 scorer, ranking 4, captaining, and picking up 7703, and then grabbing 9091. I love this alliance build. This is really cool. So what we have here is we have an L1 coral. The way I see it, we have an L1 coral specialist. We have at 7703, who I would claim is a algae descoring specialist, and then can also score some L2s and L3s. And then you have 9091, who is a algae processor specialist. So what I thought we were going to get out of this alliance, we're going to look at it a bit. I thought 7703 was going to descore all the algae, and 9091 was going to score it all in the processor. And what we got was kind of a hybrid where 7703 was cycling coral until 9091 ran out of algae, and then 7703 would knock an algae on the ground, and then 9091 would pick it up. And so we could look at and break down whether that was effective or not. Whereas 498, 2375B, and 991 had a directive of score as many algae as you can in the processor. If that takes you to the other side of the field, so be it. And 2375B and 498B were just going to stack as many L1 coral as they could. 10506 and 2375, their predominant strategy throughout playoffs seemed to be to complete the L4 coral, right? Complete that L4 ring. Once that is done, then we'll worry about other, stuff later. 2375A with their patented scoring algae at the processor at the end of the game, right, for extra points. And then with their two-piece. And they ended up scoring pretty decently, right? So in Finals 2, let's not look at Finals 1. There were some tech issues. Let's not look at that one. But Finals 2 scoring up over 100 points, which was their high for the event. And they do it with 12 points of fouls, sure. Oops. Oh, boy. What's happening? Oh, goodness. There we go. Right? 12 points of fouls, but still getting up over 100 is impressive right at the end there. So Alliance composition-wise, I was actually really impressed with how this event squared out. I know that when there's only 12 robots in the event, sometimes it's hard to build a complete alliances, but we actually got 4 complete alliances, down to the fact that 991B for Alliance 1 could score algae in the processor. And sure, 9982 was only a drivetrain, but they were the best defender at the event. So, in a way that, you can apply points to defense, right? How many points are you taking away? Playoffs were fun. We didn't have any upsets. We pretty much stayed true to the bracket all the way, right? 1 beat 4, 2 beat 3, 3 beat 4, 2 beat 3, and then 1 beat 2. And we didn't go to any rubber match. But I thought it'd be pretty interesting if we took a look at some of these matches, starting with, let's see, where do we want to start, y'all? We want to start with lower bracket finals. I think we start with lower bracket. The second round, 3 versus 4, which I believe. Let's double check our handy Blue Alliance. Which, if you're familiar with ARL and didn't know how to follow, Blue Alliance is a great place to do that. It's updated, and if anyone hasn't noticed, and I'll keep saying it because I'm so excited about it, the team numbers say Bs, so you can track. Even when you come to an event, we have to assign 99 numbers to all the B robots for the FMS. But on Blue Alliance, we can track them as 498B, 2375B, which is cool, 991B. So we're going to look at, match 5. No, match 4. Let's watch match 4. Here we are on our trusty YouTube. Big fan. All the matches are there. Match 4. Boom, boom, boom.
Welcome to our first elimination match of the afternoon. The winner will move on.
I don't know if we want the audio. Probably don't need it. But all right. So what we will notice is that both of these alliances were pretty underpowered in the autonomous stage. But one cool thing is that they all moved. Right? It's not a given that every robot is going to move in auto. And in fact, we had a lot of auto RPs not hit in quals because robots didn't move. So the fact that all 6, from Alliances 4 and 3 moved in auto is really cool. And leaves us with a really, one L1 scored low on each side. So mirror autos, basically, right? And remember, the only difference between these two alliances is that Blue, so Alliance 3, has a robot, 2 L1s, right? And Alliance 4 has 1 L1 and then a 7703 that can score 2s and 3s. But in general, 991 and 9091 at this point of the competition were processor ground algae specialists. So I'm mostly going to focus on what Alliance 4 is up to during this. Alliance 3 is, it's pretty much the same thing every match, right? 991, right, grabbing an algae off the snow cone, goes and scores in the process. They're going to do that till they clear all the algae. 498B, L1. 2375B, L1. What's interesting is over on, I'm going to back this up for 2 seconds. What's interesting is over on the blue side. So you have 996 cycling their L1s, as they do. 9091 quickly cleaning up the algae that's on their side. So we're kind of mirroring what's going on with Alliance 3. The only difference here is that 7703 is cycling L2s to start. They knock that algae off, right? So they miss, cursor's over here. So they miss the L2, but they knock that algae off. And now that's another algae for 9091 to do. And so we're working on it. And so 7703 is going for this higher score, right? And they end up missing and drops L1. But what I thought was interesting was that sorry. Let's go back a second. So once 991's job is done over here, I mentioned this earlier, they're going to go play defense, right? So it might have behooved Alliance 4 to knock more algae off early so that 991 or 9091 wasn't traveling all over hill and dale to try to find algae to score, right? Once the defense arrives, it gets a lot harder for 996 to get into the station, and for 9091 to pick up some of this algae, right? So right now they're doing their best to grab their algae. So now we're at this point where, well, let's pretend 9091 picked this up at first try. We're at this point where all the algae is gone from the field, and we need to descore, right? So now 9091 is left without a job. So, maybe descoring the algae earlier would have been more beneficial. So 9091 doesn't have this downtime. In that downtime, though, 7703 does score 2L3. So that helps out a ton. But I think just in general, the algae, the more you score the processor and the more there is in the net, the more sketchy and harder, if you think about it that way, it becomes for others to score algae in the net. So come ARL Championship, it might behoove teams that do score in the processor as a specialty to score as many as they can as early as they can, so that teams that are scoring algae later in the match, right, a 498 or 2486, right, they have a harder time placing that algae, right, nesting it. So this is a small sample size because it's only one matchup, but there's a lot of algae left here. 9091 kind of ran out of stuff to do for red, and so the L1 spamming of 498B and 2375B is able to overcome the L3s of 7703. Right, so I'm a big fan of leaning into what the robots on your alliance do the fastest when it comes to playoffs, and then building your strategy around getting certain jobs done. So 7703 basically spent the entire event descoring algae, and that's what they're fastest at. So we should descore as many algae as possible to start the match if I'm 7703, right? Get that job done. Worst case scenario, 9091 doesn't score at all, right? But at least it's there, or half the algae. At least descore enough so you don't have to think about it again for the rest of the match, right? It's a lot easier, robot-wise, FRC logic, to do one job, or at least brains, right, for drivers. Do one job, then swap to another job and just fully focus on that other job. Whereas when you have to bounce back and forth between jobs, it requires extra layers of communication, right? 9091 has to say we're out of algae, or the coach of 7703 has to see that they're out of algae, then comment to the driver. The driver has to either finish what they're doing, scoring a coral, or stop what they're doing, picking up a coral, and then go descore an algae. And then by only descoring one algae, once 9091 scores that one algae, we got to do that whole process over again. Whereas at the beginning of the match, if we descored enough algae to keep 9091 fed the rest of the match, then 7703 can focus completely on as many L3s and L2s as they can. Right? So I really like the makeup of both of these alliances. I think once 498B, so 9970, picks up 2375B, I thought the picks from 996 were actually excellent. They picked up the best and only robot available that could descore algae from anywhere on the reef. And then they pick up the most dominant algae scoring specialist that was available based on numbers, right? 991 was also very good, but just had less overall. So I understand the pick of 9091 there. So I just thought it came down to, especially in this matchup, just potential strategy. I understand that for every algae you put in the processor, the other team in theory gets 2 points, right? Like you get the 4, but the other team gets 2. But when you're talking about playing a match, like you're talking about playing L1 cyclers, the point difference is actually the same, right? It's pretty close. It's the same. So, like, spamming more in the processor is actually good, even if they're scoring. Like, even if they're tossing them in, it's the same as cycling more L1s, right? It's the same. Anyway, I thought that was a super interesting matchup. If people are interested, we can take a look at finals. We'll go ahead and skip finals 1 because there was some catastrophic technical difficulties on Alliance 2, and I'm sure they don't want to relive that one. This is unfortunate. But let's check out finals 2. And finals 2 is both our penalized and unpenalized. Or no, wait a minute. It's definitely our penalized high score. I believe it is also our unpenalized high score. Or at least our penalized high score is now 168. Our unpenalized high score is now 151. So whether it's from the same match, I'm not sure, but we can take a look. So you got your Alliance 2 on the left. Go back to the beginning here. Alliance 1 on the right. 498 having serious issues throughout the playoffs, scoring anything in auto. What you're seeing them do here is what they did in every match, which was go up to score and get stuck. And then Plasma scoring their solid 1 from pretty much anywhere they start. The strategy for the number 1 alliance was very clearly 498 clear as many algae as we can, while 2403 starts with just circling and scoring as many L4s as possible. And then you have 991B currently getting defended down there in the corner, right, to clean up as much as they can from the ground and score in the processor, just to keep the ground clear. Whereas Alliance 2, like we talked about earlier, their directive was very clearly to score as many L4 coral as they could. They wanted to fill this L4 ring, and then anything they score on top of that is bonus, right? And then hoping that their defender slows down the Red Alliance enough to that they just score their L4 ring. But the odds are certainly stacked against them, as they often are when you're coming against the number 1 team. So in this case, right, the number 2 alliance strategy of scoring the entire top ring of L4s, you're going up against 2403, who's essentially doing that on their own, right? So it's taking 2375 plus 10506 together to keep up with 2403 is doing on their own. So then the algae that 498 is scoring is all tiebreaker, right? It's all tiebreaker. And then after the algae that 991B is putting in the processor, that's also all tiebreaker, right? Any L3s or L2s that 498 gets on after they get a coral jammed, which is why they go play defense here at the end. But they honestly, the score's a lot closer because of the penalties that 498 gets here, unfortunately. But everything that the number 1 alliance is able to do, right, on top of the L4 ring is the tiebreaker in this scenario, right? Alliance 2 best case scenario was scoring all their L4s, right? Alliance 1 was scoring all their L4s kind of by default. And then all of the algae, the climbs, and the coral scored on L3 and 2, that was the tiebreaker in the situation, right? Especially because Alliance 1 had access to 2 hit-or-miss climbers, right? Plasma's working pretty often, 498's hit-or-miss. And Alliance 2 access to no climbers, right? So definitely outgunned, but I think they played strategically the best way they could, right? You can't send multiple defenders in this game, so there isn't really anything super spicy, quote unquote, that Alliance 2 could have done to really shift the balance in point potential. I think that their pick, first of all, it's unknown to me if 2375 and 10506 knew that 991B could score algae in the processor. But if they did know that, their pick of 9982 essentially secured them finals, right? Way of thinking. Their pick of 9982 secured them a chance in the finals. And once you're in the finals, you never know, right? Robots on the other team can break down or whatever. But I think if they were just picking off of point potential for the finals, 991B might have been a better pick, right? They could play defense relatively the same. They had some electrical issues earlier on. But then they also had the ability to put in the ground algae in the processor, which gets you, albeit marginally, but gets you closer in points in a 3v3 offense for first three offense situation. So I can't fault the pick. I think it makes a lot of sense. I had the same philosophy, done a lot of making finals from not the number one seed, right? Where it's just like, we just have to make finals. So we need to make picks that get us to finals. And then when we get to finals, figure it out when we get there, right? Is there anything special we can cook up on the way there, on the way up, or like, well, maybe the other team start to break down by the time they make it to finals. Who knows? So I thought just overall, from my perspective, impressed at the Alliance's build for this event, sorry. I thought everyone picked reasonably well, like reasonably as in like it makes sense strategically. And I'm curious for ARL July if we're going to see any shakeups in philosophy, right? If we get just a couple more L4 scoring robots, like you may see algae scorers go earlier, you may see algae D scorers go earlier. Climbers become vitally important. So hopefully for ARL July, we get to see maybe a shift a little bit in the L1 meta. We got to see it kind of on full display in June. But if either 2375B has a climber that is semi-effective, and 498B is working on one, they had it on there for this event, and they tried to climb and it basically exploded. So if they can figure that out, we might get these L1 specialists ranking pretty high, not just at the event, but in our ARL Championship rankings, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? If we remember, Einstein level playoff performances, those L1s become really, really important, right? There is a world where some processor and L1 matches netting, right? If netting takes a slower amount of time, so it might shake things up for ARL Championship, which is why attending these early events is so important. But yeah, I thought overall the event ran really well. For those who missed our prediction show, there are some overs, there were some unders. Nobody hit the Golden Alliance. For an exact detailed breakdown of scores and who scored what, you'll have to tune into our next ARL prediction show. If you missed the ARL prediction show and are not in the know, I'm going to use this moment as a shameless plug, just so you know, everyone competing on the prediction show is competing for you. That's right. They are competing for prizes, bonus matches at the ARL Championship, from key volunteer human player matches to mentor-driven matches. It's all there. To algae-only matches. I highly recommend tuning in to the ARL prediction show if you haven't. Next episode, the 15th? Is that the Wednesday before ARL? Or is it the 16th? Maybe someone in the chat can remind me, because I'm bad with dates. Definitely tune in. You can get your full score update there and see what we're playing for. Okay, so we have two things left on the agenda, unless anyone wants to watch a specific match. We did have July 16th. Beautiful. Thank you. We did have one match replay at this event because we got the foghorn. But other than that, nothing too... Oh, you know what? There was something really interesting that happened that maybe not too many folks saw. I remember, I think it was I don't know if it was a qual or a playoff match, but 9982 was playing defense like they do, where they get posted up. I'm just going to use this field as an example. They get posted up now near the wall, and they kind of drive back and forth really fast. And there was a match where they pinned, like as they were driving, they hit a coral into the wall, and a little piece of the coral like shattered off, and it flew all the way up over the driver's station wall by the coral station on the other side of the field, like outside the field. So that was interesting. So yeah, a lot of good times at the ARLs, and hopefully we'll see you all at ARL in July. And that's also why you wear your safety glasses field side. More you know. All right, so I do have some unfortunate news to share with y'all. Our hotbot man himself, Mr. Schroyer, is currently floating in and near the vicinity of Alaska. So he will not be joining us this evening. So I have been left to award ARL July Hotbot. I'm very excited to do so. I don't really have sunglasses or anything that makes me look cool. Wait a minute, hold on. There you go. All right, we're cool. But without further ado, let's get into the Hotbot. Got to get some new clips in this. I'll have a talk with the Hotbot man. So, all right. Oh wow, I'm really out of frame. Hello, welcome, fam. This is Schroyer's Hotbots. This is a segment of the show where we recognize an outstanding, or really cool, or unique, or just Adam wanted to robot that competed this past event. So in this case, ARL June. Let me get my notes up. This robot is in its second ARL event of the year. They averaged over 4 high L4 coral a match with a max of 7. They are getting more dialed in every time we see them play, and they fit the definition of the Hotbot to a T. They are not a robot that is consistently at the top that you maybe know every time. But ARL, they are putting themselves on the map. Really impressed with none other than 10506, our highest number, I believe, to ever be awarded the Hotbot. Congratulations. Crash Out is the robot's name. Competed really, really well. I know near the end of the event, their number started to dip a little bit as the robot wear and tear kind of caught up. But they got off to a really hot start in their qual matches, and they held it and rode the ranking all the way to the end. So they ended number 2, which is really good. It's really, really good. I had internal debate on a couple different robots for the Hotbot this month, but no one to check me on my opinion because Adam's floating in Alaska. But in my opinion, the 10506 is someone you should keep your eye on, as are all robots that have the Hotbot sticker. 1165 was awarded the Hotbot of ARL May. There is a fresh sticker awaiting 1165, and there will be a fresh sticker awaiting 10506 at the next ARL. They're embossed this year. They're really cool. If you got one last year, I'm not gonna lie, these ones are way cooler. They're like I don't know, they have some texture to them. They're cool. Very cool. But 10506, I always, like, when we're in the strat circles or I know I have a match upcoming with 10506, I can, like, guarantee that I can, we can talk strategically, like, they can fill an entire face on their own, right? 10, 5, 6, you guys are going to hit the 2L4s, 2L3s, 2L2s, and you're going to move on, and they'll, they do it, right? Really consistent. The driving is getting better. Obviously, the ARL reps are helping, and it would not shock me to see this robot in the top 8 of the ARL Championship rankings at the end of the year, especially because, and I'm going to keep beating this horse, especially because they're competing in these early events. It would not shock me to see them ranking inside the top 8 for the ARL Championship and going quite early, potentially picked, especially as they continue to get reps in for all the events. Now, can they get a climber on there, maybe an every bot style? Can they more consistently knock algae off? Can they speed up their cycles a little bit? Maybe a little auto alignment. I know there's some discussion from their team in the ARL Discord. Plug. But shout out to 10506. Really great job. You are the Schroyer's Hot Bots of ARL June. Congratulations. And I'm going to transition out of my Hot Bots attire. And for our final segment of the evening, we do have a look at our championship ranking. Now, I would like everybody to keep in mind that the champs rankings are not finalized until a team competes in their second event. So, 2403, 2375, 10506, 2375B, 996, all of those robots are now qualified for the ARL Championship in October. And then we had a bunch of robots compete for the first time. 498A, 991, 991B, 9982, right? All of those robots have competing for the first time will have to compete in another event in order to qualify. So, again, that's why this July event is so important. Get your qualifications in before we hit the months where we're maxed out on teams. A reminder that ARL has a max capacity this season. So you're going to want to get your qualifications taken care of early so that you're qualified for the championship late. Kadoke? All right. Without further ado, let's take a look at the top 8. So this is going to be 8 through 5. Top 8. So this is going to be 8 through 5. Bang. I'm muted. Bang. Okay, here we are. All right, at the top, as in the bottom, coming in at number 8, 2486 with 39 ranking points. Now, they are still number 8, even though they have competed at only one event. They competed at ARL May. They did not compete, unfortunately, at ARL July. We will see them again in ARL June. We will see them again in ARL July. But they are holding out at number 8. Now, you can imagine that because they already have 39 points, if they compete in July and they repeat that performance, they're jumping all these teams. Now, all these teams, with the exception of our number 5 team, have only competed once. So, in our 7th seed, we have 498A, who competed in their first event in June, and they took home the W, albeit they took home the W with a very poor ranking point average. Right? There we are. The points are initially calced. One of the criteria is what your ranking score is at the end of qualification. Right? And so it's like 0 to 0.5, 0.5 to 1, 1 to 1.5, 1.5 to 2, yada, yada, yada. So at the top of the show, when I was talking about Plasma squeaking into the 4-point range and 2375 squeaking into the 3-point range, that's really good. You want to be as high as you can because that translates directly to your ranking points for championship now, or your championship points. And with the case of 498, they're 2.89. They really wish they could have squeezed out a 3.0, but one too many dropped RP. Unfortunate, right? And they're sitting under the 3. So in order for them to try to catch up with like some of our top teams, right, in the rankings, they're going to have to outperform how they did at the next one and then outperform again, right? Because they're just behind a couple of winners, right? One of those winners being the number 6 ranked team, 9432 at 52 points. And then number 5 with their second event of the year. So again, 498B is currently the 5th captain, 5th ranked seed, with 53 points after a much more impressive performance at ARL June. Robot probably still has a long way to go, but they have competed twice, so that's why they're so high ranked up. Once everybody competes twice, these will start to kind of, fill out the way you expect. Okay. Per usual, I forgot to say this at the start, but if you have any questions on how the rankings are determined, or where you can find the points and everything, or whatever, it's all in our ARL handbook, which is easily accessible in our ARL Discord. So consider joining that way, and you can find, or it's all over the place. It's on our YouTube, or you can get it from someone. So you can find out how all the points are calculated there. Our number 4 team is 2375B with 60 points. 2375B puts up a second impressive performance in a row. If you remember, they won the first ARL as the last robot in the event, I believe. Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think I am, because I remember these things. So 2375B won the first ARL event in May, and then they followed that performance. What I like about their performance in June is that they still took time to put work into 2375B, and they keep getting better, right? So they win ARL May as the last pick of the event. Come ARL June, they're not just not the last pick of the event, they're the first pick of Alliance 3, right? So I think that is a well-deserved 4 ranking spot for 2375B. Again, another L1 specialist like 498B. That would not shock me if it found its way into the top 8 for ARL rankings by the end of the season. Just because it's going to these early events and it's getting these high point totals early. It's going to be so much harder to get these high point totals later on in August and September. So congrats, 2375. Number 3, 10506. We were just talking about our hotbot of the month. 10506 with 64 points. 10506 and 2375B are qualified for the ARL Championship, so this is 2 events combined. No win yet for 10506, but 2 really solid performances. 10506 making it all the way to match 4 in Qualifier 1, and then in Qualifier 2 making it all the way to finals as the 2nd seed captain. Now, 10506, it was the first pick of the 4 seed captain in our first qualifier, and they followed that up with a 2nd seeded captain performance in June, which is very impressive. Again, well-earned spot as number 3 on our rankings. Number 2. We have any guesses? We have any guesses who number 2 is? It's obvious. Our number 2 ranked team is 2375 Dragons. They have a 2nd performance in a row. They are really doing good, like really well at these early ARLs. They make it all the way to losers finals in ARL Qualifier 1, and then they make it all the way to finals in ARL Qualifier 2. And the robot just continues to become more dialed in as we go, right? More driver practice. Autos are getting tuned, right? So they have set themselves up for success, not just at these qualifiers, but also at the ARL Championship, to have a deep run, right? Obviously, the higher rank you are, the more in charge you are of your alliance, and the better alliance you can potentially build. So 2375, they're grinders, do a great job. Looking forward to seeing how they progress throughout the season. And then at number 1, of course, it has to be 2403 Team Plasma with 106 points. Folks, this is the first time that we have had a team with over 100 points for the ARL Championship. Now, part of that is because we have more ranking points available to us this year via the way the game works, so our ranking averages are higher. But let's not kid ourselves. 2403 has won 2 straight events with high ranking averages going away. They've won the events without any question, right? And I think they will continue to win events. They are well set up to do really, really well this rest of the season, and at the ARL Championship, being currently the only L4, L3, L2 ground coral robot, right? That we've seen at ARL and kind of in the state as of right now. So big, they had not the season, the regular season they wanted, but the robot is tuned and working really well right now at ARL. And the fact that they're climbing is just another boon, right? It's huge for them. So 106, that's an ARL record. They have a chance to raise that even more by winning ARL July, ARL August, ARL September with a ranking score above 4.0, right? To overtake that win that they have already. It is going to be really hard for a team to take this #1 spot away from 2403 unless they have two banger events, right? Like 2 events where you rank above 4, your ranking score is above 4.5 and you win the event, like really high. So congrats, Plasma. So again, going from the top, let me turn all these on. Boom, boom, boom. And this should all be published now on Instagram. So if you want to go on Instagram and share with your team account or like and whatever, that would be awesome. It's also going to be posted in our Discord. So you check it out there, or if you need a reminder. But we have 2486. Still have one more. They have to play one more to qualify at the number 8 spot. 498 at the 7 spot. Also have one more to play to qualify. 9432 at the number 6 spot. Still only one event under their belt. 498B, our first championship qualified team at the number 5 spot with 53 points. And then going down the list, our top 5. 2375B with 60 points. 10506 with 64 points. 2375 with 68 points. And then with almost a 40-point gap, 40-point margin, 2403 with 106 championship points, which is a ARL record and could potentially be higher by the end of it. So congratulations. Now ARL July pans out on. Probably had echo there. Looking forward to seeing how ARL July pans out. I hope that everyone who attended, compared to those who attended in May, it's unfortunate we had less attendance in June because the field was up and ready to go right at 4 o'clock. Teams could have gotten on the field for calibration immediately, and we started practice matches at about 4:30. So I expect the same for ARL July. We want to get as many practice matches in as possible. So if you're on the fence about whether to come at all, or you're on the fence about whether to load in on Friday, I highly recommend doing so. Okay? Alrighty. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight. This was a brisk and on the dot 1-hour episode of our ARL Extra Innings show. I have been your host. My name is Luke. I am one of the ARL program directors and a mentor on 498. I appreciate your time and your interest in rewatching some of our action from ARL June. If you'd like to watch all of the action from ARL June, you can go on our YouTube. All the matches are up, and I imagine over the next couple of days they will be linked to the matches on the blue lines. If you haven't followed us on social, you can connect with us basically anywhere. We have an Instagram, we have a Twitter, we have a Facebook. We even have a LinkedIn if you want to go explore. But we also have, and our largest entity is our Discord. So definitely join the Discord. Make sure you update your name with your team number and everything so people know how to talk to you. And then the Discord is as useful as you post in it. So if you have any questions, feel free to post them there. We have a plethora of really helpful individuals who will respond pretty much at a moment's notice any time of day. Let's see. That's pretty much it, folks. Thank you to all of our, per usual, thank you to all of our volunteers. I couldn't do the event without you. And till next time, I guess that's that. Play my outro music. I think it's playing. And toodles.